Welcome to the 234th episode of Signs of the Southland. It is just me, Jack Purdy, and Jake Grant here today. Akshay is off on I think, Jake, we both agree, a very much needed and well deserved vacation for our dear friends. So he is off this week, wherever vacationing. I actually don't know where he is. That's how out of the loop I am on this.
I
So
I do, but I'm not gonna dox him.
wait, no,
So,
no, no need to dox. No need to dox. If you want to
yeah.
support our friend Akshay, just go retweet Game on Paper and anything Game on Paper has been going on Twitter for the college football world. Now that we are finally getting that on the Twitterverse. Anyways, me and Jake played golf today. We had a grand old time. I got second place. Jake needed to win the last hole to win our whatever game we were playing. I forgot what the actual name of the game was called.
I think it's
Uh,
called Wolf, but I don't know why.
Wolf something. It was Wolf something. There was not many points were scored, which is the opposite of what happened in the football game. Uh, but we had a good time. College Park Golf Course, always worth the time. They just redid the greens, which is really cool.
Yes.
So the greens are good. If
Yeah.
you're in Atlanta and like golfing, College Park is in a much better shape than maybe the last time you've ever played there because the greens are in really good shape. So we're definitely worth the time. And
Still
of
good
the
prices though. I'm
yes,
very pleased by their offering.
it definitely is the most affordable golf course in the city. I think that it's not.
Yeah. Anywho,
Uh, so today, we'll talk about the VMI football game. Of course, we'll go over a quick overview as we've done the last couple of weeks, and then do some deep dive. Talk about volleyball this week. They had 3 matches at home, and then we'll do some quick hits on tennis and golf. Was there cross country? Am I making that up, or was there no cross country this week?
I think there was. I can add some stuff on the fly for that. I think they were in Huntsville, is
Huntsville.
what I
Okay.
want to say. But
Okay.
they ran Friday and also can Saturday, Sunday for our non-reg
There we go.
stuff. But
Well, hey,
yes.
well, all that to say, we are in the full swing of the fall NCAA sport calendar season. So we are back to our normal slate of covering everything because there's a lot to cover. So let's start with
Yep.
football. I'll do the quick overview and then we'll talk about our thoughts here. Of note, so we were playing VMI. This was the bye game for this year, and if you do not know what a bye game is, that is where historically the Power Five team or the home team will pay their opponent a sum of anywhere from high six to low seven figures to come and play a football game at their stadium, and usually the big team wins that game. We of course have a checkered history in that regard, but VMI is known as one of the not so good FCS teams, and they were down to their backup quarterback, which really spelled disaster for them, unfortunately, to the point that and we'll get into why there was some disaster here. But this is to put it into perspective. This was about as easy of a game Tech is going to have basically ever uh, in the modern era of football. So we'll take the wins when we can get them. Um,
Yeah.
VMI had one first half first down. I think that puts that half into perspective. Tech scored on 6 of their 9 first drives, and it was even though we punted on our first drive, we still scored on 6 of the first 9. And it was 38-0 at halftime. And by that point, both sides were like, we can see where this is going. There's no need to make this any longer than it has to be. And so both the third and fourth quarter were reduced to 10 minutes each, and Tech emptied the bench after Haynes King had thrown for 275 first half yards with 17 out of 22 completions and 3 touchdowns. Uh, Jamal Haynes didn't really play that much. Traylon Maddox actually was our leading rusher at 53 yards and a touchdown. It was good to see him finally back out there. Uh, we did the Zach Pyron run up the middle, 1 yard from the end zone play twice. He got 2 touchdowns that way and had a passing touchdown when it was all said and done. Eric Singleton got 102 yards receiving with a touchdown himself, and him and Haynes had connected for a 50-yard pass, which was good to see, especially since we, in general, been wanting to see us throw the deep ball, and in a game that was effectively a glorified scrimmage in some way you could probably put it that way. It was good to see that. Uh, this was fun to me. In the end, VMI had the ball more than Tech, even though they only scored the 7 points. But that's because we were not milking clock ever when we had the ball, and so we were just scoring so fast, and usually only had about 5 to 6 plays to score as the game went on, and we won 59-7 for Tech scoregami, which of course is that was the goal with scoregami, of course, right?
That's about all like you could reasonably expect out of it. That was I guess that you'd want to be memorable about the
Right.
game is get a unique score, maybe goof some of the stat lines and things like that. Like it's not I don't know. It's VMI. They were out there. They competed. I respect that. And Georgia Tech took care of business. There's
They really
really
did.
not
There's
not
very
a
little
ton
to
to
so
say
there. Yeah,
about it. It's a game you just have to handle, and to be in a place where Tech looked good doing it. I don't think anyone can complain about that. So
no, in a season where we need it, where we're like getting that sixth win might be a real challenge if things
yeah,
go the wrong way. That you take the win here and just be happy about it. I will note I was kind of glad at the end of the game when VMI did get their touchdown because they did have some traveling fans there who I assume a lot of them were family and they had their moment, which was kind of cool when it was all said and done. I'll
yeah,
note this was the most packed I've ever seen the student section for a bye game as well.
yeah,
Granted, it was not packed in the second half because the game was basically over by halftime,
yeah.
but still, it was very, very full. They have been needing to do like a whole wristband situation that I never really had to deal with when I went to games as a student. And I know you were doing rec clubs, so it was different for you, but uh, it that was really cool to see that even for we are kind of fair weathery to be honest. Like there's only 31,000 people at this game. Granted, the weather kind of sucked, but
Well, it
uh,
was also terrible weather, speaking of
yeah,
fair weather, but
yeah.
no, it way back in the day, way back in the day, it wasn't that long ago. I used to do the wristband handing out in the ticket office.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
That
cool.
was something they made Rec Club do, and it was just like okay, guys, sign up, man this booth type of thing.
Yeah.
So, good to see that some things never change, right? The logistics of getting all that stuff out.
Yeah. I think so.
No AI, just a physical piece of paper,
I feel like that's what we have to do going forward. You have to have some semblance of how class registration used to go in like the 60s and stuff like that. You got to have make them
Oh
go through it.
no, no,
Make them go
no.
through it. Make them go through it. No, kidding. Uh,
I'm this is a left turn. That was hard enough to do online. I can't imagine the stress of
oh
like
my God. Yeah.
having to submit a physical piece of paper to it,
No.
at O'Keefe or
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah. It'd be
Yeah.
crazy. I think so. The what felt like the actual like, oh, this was new information was Aaron Philo. He got a couple
Yeah.
drives and I mean, granted, this is VMI. Keep in mind, like we were not facing a team that's any good at football, sadly, but relative to where we're at. But he still like went out there. He still made some good throws. Um, it was just fun to see him out there. Brody Rhodes also got a drive, and he had a couple pretty nice runs as well. So, and that was also at the time when VMI had their backups in because they were both teams were using this as a practice by the end of the game. But nonetheless, that it was good to see him out there because for a lot of Tech fans, like it was unless you watched his high school footage or watched his games at Mercedes Benz during the Georgia High School Championships, we've never seen him play. And he's certainly not getting first team reps or anything like that. And I think that just instilled some like, okay, all the hype we had about the quarterback room actually kind of being four deep isn't wrong. These
Yeah.
guys, if break glass in case of emergency, Aaron can throw the ball. Brody is a very mobile quarterback. He can throw the ball as well. So I imagine, you didn't leap before that happened, right? You saw those games that drive go down.
I saw a couple of the plays. We
Okay,
the one day single tracking will end
I
and it'll
know,
be
I
great.
know, I know.
Yesterday was not that day, and neither was
It
today.
was so sad. That's so sad that
Yeah.
Marta's doing that. But no,
Uh,
he had three completions for 49 yards. Like he was throwing the ball deep, which is more than
yeah.
Zach Pyron had. But then Zach's
Oh, I mean, he
is
had he had a couple business-like drives. Like that's how
yeah.
I would describe that
I
segment
think
of
that's
the
fair.
game that he was
Yeah,
in there.
I think that's
Yeah.
fair. We had one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine guys run the ball during the game. Singleton had a 15-yard carry. Anthony Carey had a touchdown in one of his three carries he had in the game. Pyron had four. Traylon Maddox had nine. Brody Rhodes had two. Chad Alexander had four. Dalen Gordon, who was a man I did not know was real, had two. Malik Rutherford had one. Jamal Haynes had. This was I think the only blemish was Jamal Haynes, 7 carries, 22 yards, and a fumble that
Yeah.
didn't, thankfully, wasn't lost. But that was not impressive, I guess to put it lightly. He eventually got back in there. I mean, he had 22 yards because he had a lot of negative yards. He had some negative yards to start
Yeah.
it the game, and got recouped those back. But that was interesting to see just how those runs came about. I couldn't tell you why it was that easy for VMI to get around them. Like our offensive line was not a problem, but nonetheless, uh, yeah. If you look at things are going to be kind of skewed statistically because of this in this game, just because of how dominant we were. Haynes King has a very, very high PFF grade this week. And keep in mind, he played one half
Yep.
of football against a very easy team to play football against. So there is some grain of salt there to be taken, but still, he still had to do the job. He still actually had to make the throws, get the timing
Hmm.
down with Singleton. So in the end, these are all positives that we're talking about. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and we all wanted to see the starters come out, and they did after one half. So I think in the end, this is a win across the board. All
Yeah.
in all, Jake, give me a tailgate recap. Give me a campus vibe check in of how this was. For
Um,
how for I mean, I'm not gonna. I guess for an FCS team, this feels like it was a little bit more going on campus for this particular game than you usually would have.
yeah, and I think some of that should definitely be given to, Georgia Tech in terms of props of some of the things that the athletic department is doing to
Mm-hmm.
leverage, sponsor relationships, to have more tailgate options and the hell of a block party. Honestly, I think the North Ave move is good there.
Yeah.
Um, there's a newer or a group that hadn't previously tailgated near us before the Georgia State game, and they were back for a
Oh,
second time.
fantastic.
So,
Oh, good.
it's always good seeing more folks out and about and doing that. I walked over Fifth Street Bridge relatively early. It's pretty quiet. Yeah, a combination of home opener and the weather was just gross, man, for
It
most
was.
of the day. Like it was never thunder and lightning. It was raining for like a little bit, but otherwise it was more of that like it's just 100% humidity
Yeah,
type
just
of
haze. It was
type
just
of
like the
misting,
water was just leaking from the clouds. It wasn't like true rain
Yeah.
for so much of the game.
Yeah. So I'd say it was fine. All things considered, it was fine. You want to sell 55K, but between a letdown last week, I'm sure that moved the calculus for some people. The weather forecast originally was much worse than it wound up
That's true.
being.
That's true.
Like
Yeah.
thunderstorms, 80% chance of like deluge
It was
type
a
of
yeah.
activity.
This
So
was an interesting day in Atlanta. It was that happened, and then Georgia State Vanderbilt happened at Turner Field. Right after that, Atlanta United had a game at the same time as the Georgia State game, and there was a concert in State Farm Arena. So this was
yep.
and the Braves played also. So this was as many events in the stadiums and arenas as you could pack in Metro Atlanta in just about one day. Thankfully, there wasn't any like crazy festivals or stuff going on that like block streets and stuff. So no, I think
Yep.
it was 31,000 people that were announced as the attendance, and it may not have looked like that to the naked eye. I also can't see the alumni side because I'm on that side in the press box, but nonetheless, I feel like uh, progress was made here
The
on campus
alumni
yesterday.
st the alumni stand, the West Festival stands are definitely larger than the East, obviously, and more densely like packed in because they don't
Yeah,
have the chair backs. So I would note that, if you're in the alumni section, it can be sometimes hard to tell just how many people are there because
yeah,
the majority of people are next to you, behind you, and around
right,
you,
you're
if that
right.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So
yeah, that checks out. Looking ahead to next week, because honestly, there is not much else to talk about this game. Uh, we play Louisville. We go to Louisville, the number 19 team in the country based on today's AP poll rankings that just came out. Oh, wait, there's good news here. A school from the East is no longer the number one team in the country. I feel like that's worth.
ah,
I take solace in that. Sadly, Kentucky couldn't get the job done, but they made it a game. They made it a real game. They gave us hope for a
I thought
second
that
there.
was going to be much, much worse for them than it
It,
actually was.
it
So I
truly
guess
was.
props to them.
It truly
They did
was.
not look good the previous week. So
No, no, not at all. So yes, we're going to Louisville. We got a 3:30 game. ESPN2 is the channel you want to tune into. If you have DirecTV, ESPN and DirecTV are now friends again, and so you can watch the game per normal. Uh, Jake, I'm going to pivot to you because there's clearly no one else in this podcast, but you have some familiarity with Louisville's campus and going there. So for those that might be going to this game, what should they do at Louisville? How do you do Louisville?
yeah, so I would definitely say that Louisville's kind of a slept on city, underrated. I mean, before I had a sister that lived there, it was one of those like, oh, it's on my drive if I drive to Chicago, baseball bats, bourbon, and
Mm-hmm.
question mark. I don't basketball, baseball bats,
Right,
basketball, and
right.
and, and bourbon were all I really knew about it. But wind up going to the game. Of course, Churchill Downs right nearby, another classic, Kentucky Derby type of thing. But I would recommend taking a look at Bardstown Road and Baxter Ave. I think it's Baxter Ave. Yeah. I didn't know
Okay.
if it was Avenue or Road, but it's over on the east side of the city, and it's basically one long road out of town that just has like restaurant after restaurant after restaurant,
Ooh.
distillery, brewing, coffee shops, one of just about every type of establishment, if that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a big park, Cherokee Park, some, Cave Hill, things like that are nearby too, that offer, I guess, outdoor things to do. So all that said, if you wind up that over that way, Baxter, Bardstown, good place to go. A lot of really good variety in terms of the stuff that you can get there. Of course, there are distilleries and things like that
Oh
in
yeah.
town. Um, Jeffersonville across the river, if you get a chance to walk over the Big Four Bridge. It's this old railroad bridge that is now a pedestrian path over the Ohio River. So
Wow. That's
definitely
cool.
worth checking out. And so the old train station where it used to be, where it used to end, I guess the
Yeah.
bridge, is now a park. So
Oh,
there's basically you get a coffee or, see Jeffersonville, and it's an interesting experience, especially with Atlanta not being a river city. I mean, we have the Chattahoochee, but not nearly in the
we are
same
not a
way that
river
it
city,
like
Doug. We are a city.
defines the waterfront. Yeah.
We are a city that
Atlanta's
has
really a no water feature city, if we're being
there is
honest.
our water feature is the aquarium. Like that's the water feature
Yeah.
that we have. That's it. We have there is a river somewhere in there that we occasionally go visit and float
There's
down once a year.
there's
But
a
that's
bit
about
of
it.
a bracket, and brackish is the wrong word, but a bit of a still pond in the middle of Piedmont Park, you know?
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, if you wind up with time and energy, Baxter and Bardstown, I really do like. There's also so classic, somebody goes to a city and you're like, wow, I could see myself living here. And it's like the oldest, most expensive, like cute part of town type of
Mm-hmm.
deal. Old Louisville is just to the north of of Louisville's campus. You've got the football stadium's on the far south side, and then you kind of have campus, and then it kind of evolves into Old Louisville. But between the Granville, Old Louisville, bunch of B&B type establishments back there, I think that's probably the other spot to hit. And honestly, it's kind of just worth like a drive back and forth, if that makes sense, even if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not winding up over there. But I mean, if it's a college football Saturday or something like that, it's hard to go wrong with like 2-3 hours of just chilling at the one of the old taverny type places in there too. So
Well, there you go.
that's my Rex, Jack.
Sounds good. I wish I was going to be there
Oh,
to actually. Oh yes, one more. Okay.
one other thing. Action Cookbook, formerly of EDSBS, the extended SB
Yes.
Nation universe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's from Louisville or lives in Louisville or some combination of the two. But he's got a great recommendations, I guess Substack article, something
Okay.
like that too. But Action Cookbook, you'd maybe know of him from the Paul Johnson Curb Eye for the Smart Guy, where well, I won't spoil it, but Brian Van Gorder and Kirby Smart are getting their lives turned around together. But
Fun. Fun.
no, great recommendations too, and knows the town way better than I do. So that's my
Gotcha.
other piece. Yep.
Good to know. I guess on the football side here, this is definitely a game we are not favored in. The line is it moved from 10.5 to 11.5 just today, which is concerning.
Kind of weird.
Nonetheless, yeah, that is kind of weird. Just doing some quick game on paper research here. They granted Louisville is like kind of played nobody. They're also only played 2 games this
Yeah.
year as well. This is their first. We are going to be their first real game they've like truly had all season. So, yeah, they're right now their net EPA per play is sixth in the country. Ours is 59th. Their EPA they're really good at defending the pass right now, but every single stat of theirs looks fantastic because they just have had not much to play against right now. So, and we've had some, real game. We've had a couple real games here so far already, just between Syracuse and Florida State. In a lot of ways, we're gonna help them answer some questions about themselves. I think what we're looking for is definitely like, okay, let's get the run game revamped after what happened in Syracuse. Let's get Jamal Haynes unlocked. Get
Yep.
some more deep balls going, which was, I mean, a good sign we saw against VMI. And just in general, just play clean football. We've been really good about not penalizing ourselves that often, and at least giving ourselves a shot in these games, even if the Syracuse game was not that much of a good shot by the end. So we'll see how this goes down. There has been a hey, there is a random road win that just seems to happen every year with Brent Key. So we'll see how this goes down. A win would really unlock a lot of potential for how we make a bowl game, but potentially unlock which one, because after this, our next like truly hard game is going to be Notre Dame, and that could be until after we play Duke in North Carolina. So, do you have any just inherent like feelings about going into this game? I know it's we at this point, I feel like a lot of the Tech fan base is locked in on what the situation is right now, and we in the country too, because we have played more games than anybody at this point as well.
And I think that's something that like it feels like we've spent the last month talking about, where it's like, oh, Georgia Tech, we got to play five straight, but to start the year.
Yeah,
But that's just how the schedule works out, and I don't necessarily think
and we're not the
Louisville
only
is
ones, and we're not the only
too
ones. Yeah,
spooky. I mean, we
fair. Yeah,
played them tight last year. They reloaded a little bit,
it's
so
true.
there'll be some new faces in there, and Jeff Brom's teams are generally pretty well coached, and a well regarded offensive mind, and can't take them lightly. But I mean, the FSU win looks worse all the time,
It
but
truly does. Truly
but between
does.
like Syracuse and Kyle McCord, that's a spookier quarterback situation, I think, than we go into. And
That
the
is
advantage
fair.
of having played and lost that game is, shoot, now you know what you need to work
Oh,
on,
yes. No, I think you unlock a point that I was thinking about earlier today and even last night was that remember last year we consistently got better game by game by game. We may not have won all those. Obviously, we didn't win all those games, but even in the losses, like there was stuff was getting built upon as the season went on. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that becomes somewhat of an advantage here, having played more games than anybody, having played against ranked
Yep.
teams, having been ranked also. Uh, we have a lot of learnings to build upon, and I do think that at Syracuse, I think you're right about the Syracuse game. Like, there's no way in heck Brent and Wanky and everyone on the team didn't find something, especially and Stan Tucci and everyone on the defensive side didn't find something to learn from and apply. VMI, not exactly your best team to apply those learnings against, but at least you get the basics down. So yeah, I think I do think just as a comprehensive football team, we should look better against Louisville. Even if we don't win, we should look better, I think, than we did against Syracuse for sure. And yes, the quarterback situation is different. Like we played against DJ, who, based on how Florida State's doing, not that much of a quarterback. And then we played Georgia State. Uh, again, not a hard game. Then we played maybe a Heisman finalist in McCourt. That man could hit any target he wanted to. And then we played VMI. So it's a very weird topsy turvy thing that we're doing
Yeah.
right now. So this will be between this and, well, we only play Duke after that. So we're gonna just keep topsy turvy in this whole thing for the most part. Uh, when it's all said and done. So I think we'll leave it
Yeah.
there. I actually gonna plan to have a quarter season check-in episode later this week with one of the fellow writers from the Georgia Tech Georgia Tech media ecosystem. So I think
Ooh,
dive in.
spoilers.
We'll
Ooh.
dive in more to the game there with some smart football minds. But with that, before we dive into volleyball, let's hear from Stephen Little in section 103.
Yeah, as ever, Section 103 is the best place to find Georgia Tech apparel. It's the middle of football season, so now that you've got a couple games under your belt, go check out their NIL shirts. We've all got our favorite players year to year and whatnot, and between Haynes and Eric and the rest of the gang, there are certainly a bunch of great ones over there to check out. I got to debut a new Section 103 shirt this week for the Georgia Tech Florida volleyball match, my
Heyo.
Gold Point Tech shirt, and I believe I saw that one being sold behind Section 103 itself in McCamish, which is perfect. Great to see their stuff out and about on display, and between the new gold stuff and the NIL shirts as well. Great time to be supporting Georgia Tech. As always, free shipping on over $80 every day. If past behavior is any future predictor, then hope for a win and maybe some financial windfall in terms of Section 103 purchasing, but I'll leave that there. But in the meantime, you can find them at section103.com or at section 103 on Twitter. Code FTRS for 10%. And again, free shipping on orders over $80 every day. Jack, what do we got with volleyball?
I think we have a great segment of volleyball to talk about because they went 3-0 this week. They won every set they played in, 9-0, nine
Mm-hmm.
straight set wins. They started against the number 13 team. So, sorry, let me go back up. After beating BYU in their building last week in Provo, and we were only the 10th team to beat them in the last 10 years in their building. So it was a really, really, really big win. We moved up from 19th in the rankings to 15th. We were playing number 13 Florida, who was hovering 10 or 11 and dropped to 13 in McCamish Pavilion, which we have talked about this on the podcast and with each other off pot of like, okay, they keep scheduling the hard games in McCamish and they keep not winning the hard games in McCamish, which granted has only been two, but it was still 3-1 losses both times. And Florida,
Yeah.
not exactly an easy opponent, considering they took us to 5 last year in the NCAA
Yep.
tournament. We did beat them in their building. That was one of the best wins in program history, bar none. Um, but it was still some questions there. They broke out these new gray uniforms, which looked like the men's basketball gray uniforms, which weren't too bad. Honestly, I may have my opinions about us wearing gray, but hey, they won in those uniforms. So who am I to complain at this point? It was a 3-0 sweep against Florida, 4,100 people at McCamish Pavilion. Granted, this was a Wednesday night. It was thankfully a national TV game, hence why it was on a Wednesday instead of a Friday, like they like to do this game at. But still a great crowd considering it was midweek during the school year. Uh, they've called this the McCamish hoax or hex. I couldn't tell if it was hoax or hex that they referred it to as. So they were very, very very relieved to get this win off their backs. In general, just to get into the actual game itself, our hitting was unreal. We look offensively much more polished than we did last year. I think defensively, we've always been very good. That's been our strong suit. Claudio Pinheiro is an astoundingly good defensive coach and amongst the NCAA volleyball coaches. Florida had some defensive issues that we were able to exploit really easily. It seemed like there is a lot of spots where they just left the corner open. And we were just like, we'll just take the corner then. You're just going to give it to us? Cool. Here's 5 kills in that corner. We just took really good advantage of it. Bianca Bertolino, 16 kills at 469%, which was of her highest until 2 days later with 12 digs. Otane, 12 kills, 309% hit rate, 9 digs. Mendez, 9 kills at 400%, and had some massive kills in the second and third sets. All in all, Jake, I mean, a very fun atmosphere, a dominant showing the whole time. Which we
Yeah.
like historically haven't done against the really good teams at home either. Like, I mean, we've won against big good teams at home. BYU, thinking of one that went our way pretty well last year. San Diego, granted they fell off, but this was like
Yeah.
of the most convincing wins against a ranked team at home that I've ever seen.
You forget last year's Louisville game, but that's
They
okay.
still they
Also,
got well. I
oh,
know no,
oh,
but they got a set against us. They still got a set against
Louisville
us. And
recommendation. Don't go to the LNN Federal Credit Union House of Pain
no,
because
no,
that just brings sadness. Unless
no.
they're playing volleyball there and you really want to watch some good ball. But no, I agree with you there in general. I'm hesitant to break out this take, but I think it might be time.
It's a podcast. You got to break out takes.
It,
That's the prerequisite for being on a
I guess
podcast.
that is part of the whole deal. Jack, Wednesday felt like 2021.
Oh, this is
You
good.
know, I've been waiting to say that for a
Oh,
long
this is
time, and I
good.
don't say that lightly because that
This
might
is
be my
good.
favorite Georgia Tech team of all time
It's a really
in any
good team.
sport.
It was a really good team.
They were
Wow.
fun and they were good and they were solid. But that's the thing is they weren't perfect either, and none of these
No,
teams are going to be.
no.
They're not going to be, and I
If
think
anything, college
Georgia
volleyball
Tech is
has
still a piece or two. I don't know whether it's recruiting or NIL or what can change it. They're
yeah.
going to be a piece or two below a Texas, Nebraska type
Mm-hmm.
team. But if you can play really solid and host some postseason volleyball, hopefully back in McCamish again, like that's not a bad place to be in the sport. And
Not at all.
frankly, Georgia Tech looked extremely competent in just about every facet of the game. A name that we haven't said yet, DeAndre Pierce, looked
Yes.
really good in the
She had
middle. not the
Yes.
tallest, but
No.
dang, can she jump? And Tech was blocking and hitting into and around blocks better than I feel like I've seen them do in a long time. They were effective in the last couple of years. Like I don't know, I don't want to name names and things like that, but there was just something about service that was spooky when certain people were at the line.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this year, Friday or Wednesday, it felt like just about everyone looked pretty effective. Not everyone's going to do the jump serve or the
No, no.
crazy
Yeah.
high spin and flashy type thing. But if you can just be really effective in getting the ball in play and not give up easy points, Georgia Tech didn't give up any easy points, whether that's service
Yep.
errors, weird blocks, net violations, four hits, things like that. Like it was just a really solid, well placed game. And you talk about positioning, getting balls in the right place. They feasted on some really good positioning. And
Mm-hmm.
all that to
Mm-hmm.
say, on offense, I think if this team is going to be its full potential, and maybe this is one of the high water or ceiling type games for them, but if they are going to hit that upper limit of what they can do, they need the Otene plus Mendez production,
Yes, they do.
I think, to eclipse a Bertolino
Yep.
because Bianca's going to get fed a lot of those balls. She is their best outside hitter.
Yep.
It's just true. But if you have a night where Mendez and Otene are effective on offense, are stretching for defensive plays like that, those are the intangible things I think that gets them kind of over that hump. And we
Yep.
definitely saw that this week. Is
No, we did.
that fair take?
I think that is Otane in general has clearly gotten better to me as well. Like there were
Mhm.
some points last year where she just would just go on such a that was kind of a thing with a lot of our experienced players last year. Is they would just go on lulls that would just kneecap us so hard. We'd find ways to
Mhm.
win, but whether it was setting, whether it was I mean every little facet of our game had something that just kind of got kneecapped at one point or another, and they had to adapt and find
Yep.
ways to win, which they did. But that revealed, I think, one, just needing to get more experience, but two, just polished play. And right now, our play is really, really polished. As a whole, our team is just strong physically. They're stronger. I think that helps build some more confidence for them too, knowing they're going to face teams like Florida, they're going to face teams like Louisville, they're going to face Stanford twice that are of just the most well-rounded teams in the country. I mean, they that Nebraska game may have. I don't know if it was a wake-up call. I haven't asked them about this, but like, talk. I mean, that was one of the most overmatched games we've seen them play in before. Um, and it may have given them a taste of like, okay, no, this is what it takes to be that freaking good and to win anywhere. Um, and they
Yep.
played like it. But I know we were talking with Akshay during the or after the game. It's just like they were so good at getting to their spots in system as well. In system, we are faster now, and this was a game that was super emblematic of that. Um,
Yep.
Serve receive was better. They have AC Fitzpatrick as Florida's best player at number 0. She's really like super super good. Of the coolest to watch. She's got the jump serve as well, and she had 12 kills on 25 attacks and a couple no service aces, but we still had to work around her. That took some time. Um, to your point about the blocks, we had 8 blocks in this game. Florida had 8 blocks as well. But the fact we were even at 8 blocks
Yep.
is massive progress for us. That is not normal for Georgia Tech volleyball and has not been in a while.
Yep.
I guess since the Aaron and Breland days for talk about 2021. So yeah, absolutely, that was 100% a big deal there. Um, Luana Emiliano is fitting in quite nicely at setter right now as the number 1
Yeah.
setter. I she has all the experience I think we needed and has been showing that she has been one of the best hiding it out of your Grand Valley for a while. A couple notes here though is that in the third late in the third set, we won this game 25-19, 25-19, 25-21. Eloise Suarez was going up for a ball by the net, and she did look to jam a couple fingers in her right hand. I don't know if they like got dislocated or something, but enough to where they took her out of the game. And she didn't play the next 2 games just as a precaution. It wasn't because she like can't play. It was these are games that we don't need her to play in, so no need to risk it kind of thing and cause a real injury down the line. Uh, so that was the only I guess shortfall from that game, but beside that, um, all was really nice. They borrowed the Atlanta Vibes court and put that down to put the Terraflex down in McCamish, which has kind of been a thing the team has really wanted. Playing on the hardwood basketball court is a not as fun of an experience. Volleyball, in terms of
Mhm.
volleyball perspective, is playing on Terraflex, which is a softer material that they play on. That's what we have in McCamish. So I think they were quite happy with that as well. Um, Berlito is now eighth in aces in program history after the string she's had this weekend, so that's cool. And she's getting very close to seventh, which is Margaret Gales, who played in the late '80s. So getting closer there on that front. I think beyond this game, well, I guess even with this game, like the third set still got to 18-18. We had to close out that set to put this game
Yeah.
down. I think that's another thing that talks about the competency and the just much more polished nature of this team. Is there as far at BYU, same thing happened where they need to close out sets, and they were closing out sets. Um, they are better about slamming the door when they have to slam the door, and they got more tools to do that with. So I think just in general, the confidence I have watching this team is better. That's for sure. Uh, and they've got Georgia coming up. They've got SMU coming up, who is suddenly really good. I mean, we knew they were good, but everyone seems to be losing in college volleyball right now. Even Texas, even Stanford, Pitt became the number one team. Like it has been a lot of chaos up at the top. Granted, they all kind of scheduled against each other, so there's like 18 top 10 matches that happened. But nonetheless, um, I think looking forward based off of this match, Jake, it's the confidence is there that
Yeah.
we can. We still got to play some really tough teams, but that we can put up a fight against pretty much whoever we face.
I think that this was just a really, really solid weekend. You can't complain about that. And that's it
No, no, no.
we've got to bring home the non-con season strong here
We do.
before
We
we
got
get into some of these spooky ACC teams.
the
But
Georgia game is
I'll
the
leave that kind of there.
Yeah, the Georgia game is the last non-con game we have. I'll go through the last two games this weekend, which was South Alabama. Ironically, we played Florida and South Alabama, who were our first and second round opponents at the NCAA championship last year, and brought them back for the for the Georgia Tech Classic. So got that done.
Yep.
Beat South Alabama 3-0. That South Alabama game I was at, it was just kind of interesting because they were pretty good, and we had to kind of win by just out defending them more than out hitting them because they were honestly getting to more balls than Florida was getting to. So it was just a different style of game to win, and we did it quite easily when it was all said and done. Mendez and Suarez did not play that game. Mendez is not playing just because they're just resting her because they basically can. And then Alabama State was the Friday game. Won those sets by a lot. Like those are that was like playing VMI almost. Just really, really
Yeah.
lopsided win. Lara Casas
Yep.
Martinez got her tech debut. Ashlyn Goolsby came in at setter, our third string setter. Logan Wiley, the freshman at middle blocker, made her tech debut, which is cool. We hit 430 as a team, which was the best since 2022 against Clemson when it was like 460 something. I mentioned Bertolino having a really good night. She hit 619, her career best with 13 kills, so effectively just not missing. Laura Fisher got 10 kills, her career best. Liv Mogridge had a 750 hit at a 750 clip with her 6 kills. That was her career best. So a lot of just taking advantage of the team that wasn't that good kind of game. So
Yep.
with
Yep.
that, we play this Friday, 7 p.m. at Georgia. This is the last non-conference game. We really want to win this game because they beat us last year in McCamish, and I would like to wipe the floor with them. They were ranked to start the year. I don't know if they're ranked now, but I'm not going to even look at rankings now because the new ones are going to come out tomorrow afternoon, anyways. So in general, they were pretty good. I mean, I remember last year, Sophie Fisher just beat the crap out of us, and that was taught us some lessons about how to deal with middle blocking. So I think in general we'll be
Yeah.
we're in better shape now than we were last year when we played them. That is for sure. And that's volleyball.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they should be higher than 15 after this week. That's for sure. I mean, I would assume they get to 14 or 13, maybe 11. Who knows? There's a lot of wins and losses going on. So, all right, let's go to tennis. The fall season started up. A lot of tournament kind of things going on. They were at the Debbie Southern Fervent Fall Classic. Jake, what happened there?
Yeah. So fall tennis is odd. They play lots and lots of draws against lots and lots of different schools. So summarizing it is a little bit tough sometimes. The women were up in Furman, and I will say these in order of singles main draw, the back draw, and then doubles. So in singles,
Okay.
Georgia Tech went 8-5. They were 4-4 in the back draw, and they
Okay.
went 4-5 in doubles.
Okay.
So essentially, lots of wins, lots of losses. It's just it's tune-up season, really. There's
Yeah.
not, you'd love to win love to win a draw and things like that. It's always great to, go home with some trophies. And Alejandra Cruz in the flight two did win her flight, and Tally Light, a newer face for Tech,
Hmm.
did also win flight seven. So not a bad way to wrap things up. And then there were a couple backdraw wins to bring it home. Kate Sherbura, who's currently ranked number 117, she did end on a win in the backdraw for flight three, and then Scarlett Nicholson in four, Given Roach in five. I presume that this lines up something of like flight one equates to like court one, flight
It
two
seems
equates to your
like it.
court two
Yeah.
singles, just
Yeah.
based on how our lineup looked. But it's
Yeah.
not like they're gonna score it like a normal like team tennis match.
No, no, that makes sense. Just looking at who we played against, Kentucky was here, Clemson was here, Georgia was here, USC was here, so Bama was here, Ohio State was here, NC State was here. So yeah, it wasn't like we were facing nobody. Also, which I
Yeah.
think helps explain the why there was some losing happening on top of the winning. But
Yeah.
yeah, as you mentioned, this is like the first thing they did all season in terms of real competition as well. So off season and whatnot. Okay, cool. Now the guy.
Also,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say an A tier name from the folks out east. Wilhelmina Grant, as a Grant, that I love the double G. And also that's 10 out of 10, no notes.
I'm gonna go with that's Guillermina probably
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the pronunciation there. But okay, cool. And then the guy, I see. Oh yeah, the guys played cool. The Southern Intercollegiate. Where is that also at Furman or is that somewhere else?
No, so that's at UGA.
Oh, okay, that's even
I've
worse.
seen the Southern Intercollegiate in our old records like ages and ages back. I think they've hosted this for, oh gosh, probably like 50s, 40s. Like
Oh
it's
wow,
it's one of
dang.
those ones that's, I believe, has been around, unless it like went away and then they like revived it 30 years later.
Mm.
I'm not sure. But yeah, if you're ever in tech stats and you're like, there's no score here, and it's like, because it's just listed as they went to Southern Intercollegiates, like, I don't know what to tell you. Um, but I mean, that's kind of how this stuff gets scored here. You got a couple different draws: red, black, silver, and white, and that's it's kind of like have at it. Georgia Tech did go 14 and 15 overall in singles at the Southern Intercollegiate, and 3 and 8, I believe, in doubles, if my math is right. On day three, we did see Richard P. Jody finish with a win, 6-1, 6-4 over Felipe Costa of UGA. Always good to see. And Nate Beneteau defeating Marco Mesarovic from Clemson. Other winners on the last day was Christophe Clement over Matt Pitts, 6-2, 6-2. He is of Clemson. Rohan Sakdev defeated Cole Hensroth of USC, 6-2, 7-5. That's USC East there. And then, oh yeah, Sakdev did also defeat Daniel Phillips from ASU, 6-1, 6-1. So really good to see ending with a win. But
Yeah,
again, how much can you really judge these results? Your mileage may vary.
that really is the theme of this week. Is the only game we can judge was the Florida volleyball game. The rest of these were just either beginning tune-ups or uh your bye game kind of wins. So little interesting there. Um, anyway, so what's left? Cross country and golf. What you pick? What goes next?
Yeah, I'll go cross country first because we do have some recapping there. The men and the women both finished in third, and I, obviously would love to see a dub, but taking first, number 9 in the country, Alabama, who had 3 runners in the top 4 finishers, they weren't going to touch that. That is an
Nope.
insanely good finish.
Yeah.
Belmont got second. Georgia Tech was just a little bit behind them, but the upshot there is they held Kentucky, UGA, and Louisville on the men's side at bay. 2 D2 schools, Vanderbilt, Middle Tennessee State. Really, among those top 10 finishers, like to be in third there, that's some good competition.
Mm.
Ton of teams there as well, but I really think that's an underrated strong finish for the men there. And then for the women, it was largely similar. The only difference is their top finishers were a little bit higher. The top 3, number 12 Alabama, and then you've got Louisville, and then Georgia Tech as rounding out that top 3. really solid finish against some, it's a big field, but enough D1 talent and reliable, reliable competition that, I mean, shoot, you're finishing ahead of UGA and Auburn and Middle Tennessee State and Chattanooga, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Belmont. Belmont's got a really solid like non-rev Olympic sports type program going on
Mhm. Yeah,
up there in Nashville. I really think this is a solid showing for them, and
good.
hopefully it translates in it's we've seen Georgia Tech women, get that second, third type spot in the conference. I'm not saying, start hanging those banners yet or anything like that,
Right.
but just a solid year and maybe an at-large uh, shot for the women would really, I would think, be considered a success for these teams. And
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
top three against the stack field, I'll take it.
And
Not a
keep
ton
it.
of national ranked stuff, but you
Yeah,
got to finish in front of someone, and they did,
yeah.
So
It in a sport where funding and scholarship counts are just less compared to the rest of our sports, just with how those all get distributed and
yep,
whatnot. These kind of results are really, really good for us, considering the context of what they have to work with
absolutely.
as an ACC school. So that's really cool to see. Golf
Yep.
looks like they start the Fighting Illini Invitational on Friday. Is that correct?
Yes, they will be up in Olympia Fields. They've been there a couple times now at this point.
Yeah, I
Olympia
recognize
Fields
this.
Country Club is a pretty well regarded. Dare I say it's a suburb where most of the town is the golf course. I,
Mm, yep. Okay.
I don't want to overstate, but I believe it to be true, at least it on the south side of the Chicago suburbs. Yeah, it's a really well regarded course, and they must like it because they've been back a number of times now. So
Sounds good. Well, I think we got through everything. This is a fun weekend of tech sports for sure. Next week
yep,
we got Louisville coming up. We got one volleyball game, so not the most busy week next weekend, which is cool. Uh, I don't know if anyone else listening has the same thing going on, but when Tech has their off week, I have two weddings of Tech people to go to. So I feel like people are starting to people are scheduling appropriately. Thank you very much. But anyways, Jake, I think we are unless you got trivia for me, I think we're all set.
nah, I started cobbling some together, but the upshot of that trivia was I really don't want to know more about our away records against Louisville in non-football sports.
I got a feeling
Um,
it's
they're
not
not very
elite.
fun.
No, not at
Um,
all.
but hopefully football can go to 2-0 after this. But yeah, in the meantime, that's all we got. Keep an eye out for these sports to keep rolling along. But otherwise, yeah, it's we're in the thick of it now, and it's just going to keep ramping up. So
Yes, it will. Where can the people find us and comments with us and talk with us?
yes, as always, interact with us from therumbleseat.com. We'd love to see you there. Find us on Twitter there as well. We do also have an email address from therumbleseat@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you there. In terms of from here on out, we are going to be very, very sports focused, but we do always like getting a feature or two in when we can. If you've got ideas on improvements or just, general feedback, we take that there as well. Also on Twitter, you can find me and Jack. I'm at Jake Grant 98. Jack is at Jack Nicholas. You can find Section 103 on Twitter as well at Section 103 and Section103.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. And you can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. Till we speak again, good night, good luck, and go Jackets. See you in Louisville.